So we're gonna like share a little bit about, being together, having bhikkhunis and bhikkhus and lay women and laymen, and we've been having a wonderful past 5 or 6 days at the Hermitage, uh, discussing Dhamma and working in the forest, and it's been um, delightful. And we've been able to get into some pretty deep and inspiring areas of conversation, I would say. Really talking about our lives and our experience, how we view things. And I think constantly coming back to the themes of how we do our work and the practice in the path, and how can we support each other, remind each other of how to turn towards our own experience, recognizing that the things that affect us externally from the world are never ending. We're not going to really fix all of that out there, but what we can do is really observe our own feelings, our own mental processes, and work with those in a way that really brings freedom. So it's one of the things that I felt was coming up over and over again in the last week. And I thought maybe it would be nice for each of us to share a little bit about our experience and then open up the conversation and see if people have questions. One of the things that we've been talking about, because, in this group, we've been talking about things like gender discrimination and gender identity. And when we were talking about, well, what do we call this? I mean, the Buddha talked about the fourfold assembly. And in more recent times, the word Sangha has been used more frequently to talk about collecting together as Dhamma friends, or with Dhamma practitioners with their teacher or whatever it is, as Sangha. So now the fourfold Sangha. Well, fourfold might not quite cover it all anymore, because the Buddha, his world was divided into male and female and monastic and lay. So we decided maybe the best way to describe our collective is the twofold Sangha, monastic and lay. And the reason, I look at the way the Buddha taught and what he wanted for everyone is a place in the sasana, a place in this path and practice, that as human beings we have kind of in our birthright. I've heard the way some of my teachers have talked about it, the basic ability to awaken. Everything we need is right here, using the framework that the Buddha identified and the reality of the Dhamma, which is ever present, to be able to develop our own mind and develop our own character in a way that leads to complete peace and freedom from suffering. And so if everyone has a place, then our description of all of us together needs to include everyone and have that open and welcoming for everyone. It reminds me, there's a Christian church in San Francisco called Glide Memorial. And I went there once with some other bhikkhunis and friends, and the minister and his wife who started the church happened to be there. They're retired. They've retired quite a while ago, but they were there that day, and he spoke. And I have never heard anyone speak with so much inclusion and love for everybody. It feels like, you can see this in people in the world, regardless of their tradition. And this is what I hope we can all really take in and practice, that we really do have that kind of love for all beings. And so that's been a nice feature of this past little period of time, and seeing that the Twofold Assembly is alive and well, thriving and investigating and practicing, working towards ever more peace and freedom. That's my 2 cents. Bhante, you want to be next?
Sure. Okay. Yeah, this is the fourfold or twofold or manifold or whatever you want to call it. This framework was very important to the Buddha. You can see quite clearly in the suttas that when the Buddha becomes awakened and Mara comes to him and says, "Okay, you are awakened now. Okay, you can go parinibbana, go away. Don't stick around," right? Because Mara doesn't want the Buddha to teach the Dhamma to people, to have other people be awakened. And so the Buddha said that I will not go to parinibbana until there are both men and women lay people, men and women monastics who are learned, scholarly, practice well. Right? And so this is you see it in this one sutta where it's the same qualifications for monastics and lay people in that. Like, so the lay people are also supposed to be learned and practicing well and all these kind of things. But you see this, so that the Buddha wanted this group, this twofold assembly, whatever assembly, to be the practicing well and learned group that keeps the teachings alive, right? That brings it's the vessel that keeps the teachings down through, welcome, that keeps the teachings alive down through the ages. And this is why it's so important. This is as somebody who, I became a bhikkhu, and I had never actually met bhikkhunis before. It wasn't until we actually met, when we met at the monastic gatherings, this is like 2018 or something like that, that I actually was in the same room with bhikkhunis. I was like, oh yeah, this is like the full assembly is here. This is how it's supposed to be. And this is one of the reasons that I like to go spend time with bhikkhunis, is because you get a different perspective on how to live a holy life, right? And so it's really good to kind of hear how things are done, and it's very kind of enlightening to hear that and how that impacts your own path. But it's so important that we have this group, because this group is the way that the teachings survive. And this is, I have an online community, and we have both bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, right? And we have all kinds of, when we get together and we can do the suttas together, I always make a point, it says, the assembly is here, right? We're all together. Because it's important so that we understand that this is how the teachings survive. And this is why it was so important to me that the Bhikkhuni order was revived in Theravada, because it's not quite my view is that you can't really have Buddhism without monastics, and you can't have a full assembly without bhikkhunis. And so we need the full assembly to have that full group that can keep the teachings alive. And so that the people who, you come to a place like America, where I'm from, Bhavana Society used to have bhikkhunis years ago before I moved there. But, they come to the retreats, and the women would say to Bhante, "Where's all the bhikkhunis?" I'd say, "I think they're mostly in California." I've heard tell of one or two on the East Coast, but I think they're mostly in California. And I could feel like there was that kind of lack there. There's like, well, where are the bhikkhunis? Where are their voices? So anytime the fourfold or the manifold, twofold assembly can come together is a good thing. It's good for the Dhamma and keeping it alive into the future.
Yeah, thank you, Bhante. I
kind of want to pass.
you don't want to say anything right now. It's okay.
Yeah, I think for me, the only real thing that resonates for this kind of topic is that this is for everybody, and gender is so I don't want to say pointless, but kind of meaningless when you're talking about making progress on the spiritual path. So yeah, this is such a nice opening, I think, to have more inclusivity. Like Twofold is nice, just lay monastic. We know a lot of monastics who are kind of non-binary, and they kind of discovered this after ordaining. So it's nice that they can use that framework for themselves too. It's like, oh yeah, monastic, don't have to pick. And I was talking to Xander this morning about how in Thailand, when you go fill out forms, it's like man, woman, monastic as a gender. So you don't even have to pick because it's kind of a non-gender. After a while, it'll kind of the monks look more feminine. After a while, they get softer and gooier, and then the bhikkhunis look more masculine after a while. Sometimes, forest monastic, Where's my chainsaw? So it's kind of it's nice.
She always knows where her chainsaw is. Don't worry.
Yeah, so it's really sweet that we don't have to even think about it really in terms of making progress on the path. And it's a big deal lately. I think people are really learning a lot about themselves, and it's good. It's good inquiry. It's good breaking down, kind of seeing through what we identify with, and hopefully, yeah, seeing through everything, the whole not self problem. Yeah. Good enough, huh?
Thank you. So on the lay woman end of things, would you like to say something, Sarana?
Yeah, I mean, as talking about like how like the barriers or the walls of gender and how these fall down in order for us to be able to experience the Fourfold Sangha. Like I've been interested in also observing how other barriers for people to know about the Dhamma are also falling, and I was very inspired living in Mexico in a monastery there to see like more and more the language barrier is falling down, and the cultural barrier or the geographical kind of, I don't know if calling it a disadvantage for Buddhism to enter into Latin America, but it's kind of little by little opening. So we have our first Bhikkhuni monastery in Costa Rica, and there's these two monasteries in Mexico. So it's very interesting, like how when these walls start to fall, like it opens the door for more and more people to get to know the Buddha's teachings. So yeah, happy about that.
Holding down the layman point for the next 10 minutes at least. You want to tell us anything, Sam?
Sure. Yeah.
I'll explain that comment if you don't.
Go
Go ahead, please.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I just arrived at Karuna Buddhist Vihara like on April 3rd after coming back from Abhayagiri for 3 months, which is a Thai forest male monastic community in Northern California, which I asked for anagarika ordination there before I came here. And yeah, I've been wanting to, the Ayahs came and visited when I was you came and visited Seattle in August, right?
July, maybe.
July, something like that, yeah. And I was very, very touched, and very affected by Ayya Santuska's Dhamma talks. And I've been trying to visit ever since. And yeah, since I'll be going forth in May, this was kind of like my last chance before I go home for a couple of weeks and come back to Abhayagiri to start that training. Yeah, and I'm so grateful I was able to have this chance to do that. Yeah, right when I walked in to the vihara, I think Ayya Chitananda was just piling wood onto a burn pile, and I just joined in and we started talking, and it didn't take very long before I just started to feel this kind of like release or relief of letting go, just feeling like I'm in this was in this environment with the Ayas. That's a very kind of non-judgmental, loving, open, caring place, and also being able to kind of put my guard around by not. Sometimes I feel like I have a guard up about when I'm around old men, I guess, and this has kind of been a topic that we've talked about. And it's been just a really great experience. Something about the Ayas just my heart just opens up, I guess, and I feel like I'm able to receive the Dhamma in a very easy and kind and gentle way. It really touches a very deep part of my heart, I guess. It makes me want to practice and commit myself to this life, and to know that there's women practicing, and all genders practicing, and it's a beautiful thing what's happening right now here, I think, in the West with Buddhism and Buddhist monastics, and I'm happy to be a part of it as a layperson and soon as a monk, hopefully. So.
Well, it strikes me that we're really covering a lot of different kinds of diversity here. So I'm 69, and Xander and Agartha Sarna are around 22, 23. Right on the 23. Well, we got some things in the middle happening. And then we've got different ethnic backgrounds, which is also nice. And as everyone's talking, I'm thinking about how important it is that we all have people we can look to, that we can relate to, and how important it is for all of us, lay and monastic, to be practicing. And when we are doing our own practice and we're seeing the fruits of that, then that's effective. That's a beautiful kind of thing to show up in the world, because other people who can look to any of us all meeting here today and see that development, that they can be inspired and encouraged for themselves. We had some conversations about this, like, how do I help my parents, get on the path, that kind of thing, or develop. And really, it's always best for them to see how the practice affects us or anyone in our life. When people see someone moving from, patterns that have been painful and difficult to more peace and resilience, and those ways in which the practice brings relief into our life, then they have this opportunity to investigate for themselves. And it's really been interesting, in particular, I think, for me, and some of the conversations that have happened over the past few days, to see how important it is to remember that it's not just someone telling us what it's like or telling us about the Dhamma, but we have to bring the Dhamma inside and really let it work in the background in our own hearts, in our own minds. And then we have to kind of complete the story ourselves. No matter how much someone who's already walked the path says, it doesn't really take a life on in us until we bring it in and let that mature in ourselves. Even the Buddha said that he can only point the way. So I think it's an interesting kind of mixture of influence from others who are practicing and developing and sharing what they're learning and experiencing, and our own inner work and our own responsibility. So having kind of thrown all this out there, I would really love to hear any comments or questions, and you're welcome to ask questions of any of us, and just feel free to add into this conversation. Yeah, Grace.
I have a question. This is inspired by something that Bhante J said about gaining from the perspective of bhikkhunis that perhaps a bhikkhu could not offer. If you could speak more about that, and then also to the ayahs, if there's something that you can gain from bhikkhus that you couldn't from other bhikkhunis, I'd be very curious to hear about that too.
Thank you, Grace. Could you hear her out there in the world? Yes, you can hear. Okay, great. Thank you.
Well, I think I'm trying to think of like specific examples. I think it's related to different personality traits and different ways of kind of flowing through the world, right? Whereas like I can kind of have this kind of like very like masculine like energy and like kind of like pounding through the world sometimes. And so,
he does kind of pound.
Yeah, to kind of feed off of that, to see that different way of doing things. And I have been actually just in general, I've always been aware of how differences there can be. Is I grew up with two sisters, and most of my friends in life have been women, and my careers were all it's like 100 women in the office and me and 3 other guys. So it's always been like a experience of like of contrast, and if I can see a way of improving myself and somebody else that's quite different from me, then I try to take that on and see how that advice or that role model for that can be beneficial to me. So I'm a loudmouth from New Jersey who walks really heavily, so I try to train myself to walk more lightly and speak more peacefully and things like that.
Yeah, I think for me, the thing that stands out really is that the monks lineage that we like to practice in the most, like we've got most of our experience from the Thai forest tradition, and they have such a long history and so much experience that we can go to Ajahn Pasanel for almost anything. Monastic questions we have about the training, about how to work with people that come. He's just like such a wealth of experience and information, and I can say that about a lot of other monks from his generation too. And even like Ajahn Yanako, the current abbot at Abhayagiri, I feel like he's such a good big brother for me. He's really steeped in the tradition, but he's very open-minded and more like my generation. So I can relate to him, and there's the experience. So that's like the main thing for me. I don't know that all of the like gender kind of related qualities matter so much. For me, it really is like the experience for practice and practicality to how to run a monastery, how to help people. So I think that's the main thing for me.
It was so cute when we got the Hermitage property. Ajahn Yanako passed all these books on building and electrical wiring and all this stuff. I work nun, from a work monk to a work nun. It was really sweet. I was thinking exactly the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
The depth of the bhikkhu tradition it's really important, and the depth of scholarship too, like having Bhikkhu Bodhi. He just wrote to us that he's coming to visit in California, and we're gonna hope to have him visit the Hermitage. He hasn't seen it yet, and you know, it's been so beneficial to have monks who are supportive of bhikkhunis and really want us to develop in the training. And so there's that. Yeah, like you, I'm kind of not so sure about actual, like more masculine, or maybe, you know, I mean, men and women do operate differently. I guess it has been interesting for me to observe how the male sangha and the monks relate to each other, and how the female sangha and the nuns relate to each other. And again, I'm not trying to be so binary, but it's to look at these groups and how we're different in a more general way. Of course, there's definitely a wide range of how, you know, individuals are, but living in larger communities of women like I did at Amaravati and Chithurst, I really saw how different women handle problems with each other, and also they're incredibly nurturing. And so, like, I got sick, and you know, there were 10 nuns in the community, and I had 12 remedies on my nightstand because everybody was bringing things to take care of me. And it was like, wow, this is so beautiful. And there can be a real closeness, a kind of a closeness that you often don't see in men's communities, I think. But there also can be some really serious breakdowns. When women aren't getting along, it can be really hard because we're so tuned into other people's feelings that, you know, you really are affected. You have to develop an ability to let it not be too, to not be entirely porous and let it really affect you. Whereas, you know, I've seen, and I have monks who are friends who have talked about, you know, their own challenges in being able to have close friendships with other monks, and you know, sometimes living in communities where they don't even know very much about each other at all, and they don't really talk to each other, which, you know, it's like then they'll feel a bit isolated, and things like that can happen. So it's just, you know, hoping to bring all of these differences into focus within the Dhamma, and understanding how we can develop and work with the qualities that we have for the benefit of our practice and for the benefit of the people around us.
Somebody else coming up to the door.
Yeah, it's Lynn.
All ready for her.
She's on her way. Yeah. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Holly?
Yeah.
Well, this is a wonderful sharing. It's really makes my heart feel so glad. I've vacillated back and forth between masculine and feminine my whole life, and rarely felt like I could relax about it. And I learned a lot about Buddhism and my own practice in association with Pacific Hermitage, Ajahn Siddhanto's project in White Salmon. And that was really excellent. And I remember the first time I sat down for a Tuesday evening meditation, I finally relaxed and thought, now I've found a spiritual home and I can just relax. And it just felt so good. And then over the years, over a decade, it wasn't quite all I wanted because there were no women. And I spent 20 years in the lesbian community on communes and what all doing chainsaws and, and I've vacillated back and forth between what would be called masculine and feminine. I really don't want to care about it. I was raised just to be me. I don't need a label. So to have this kind of assembly emerging is just like, I'm there, I've arrived. I've got a community around that doesn't, I love the idea of the twofold assembly because then we can just stop worrying about it. It's like the whole thing about gays and lesbians getting married. So two people love each other, they want to get married. Is there a problem? So hopefully we could just make it not a problem. We have a twofold assembly. And that's all we need to know. Thank you so much for being who you are and presenting yourselves to us today.
Yeah, thank you, Holly. Neil?
I'm not sure I'm gonna express this properly, but I've really enjoyed listening so far, and it's got me wondering. It seems to me that my understanding is that our personalities, all of our traits are really the results of our karma. Years, thousands of years of accumulated karma. And isn't gender just another one of those? And so if we can, for some reason now I'm thinking of Angulimala, he had all this horrible karma, but he was able to transform his mind to the point of enlightenment. And so in a way, and I don't know if this is going to be the right use of the phrase, the middle way, but in a way, aren't we all sort of trying to expand our minds? That's not the right word, but to get to a place where all of that sort of gets left behind.
Yeah.
Including gender. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I just wanted to throw that out there just because that's what I'm feeling in the moment. And I wanted to possibly disabuse myself of something that maybe isn't a right way of thinking, or maybe get some confirmation that it's a right way of thinking.
Well, I think you really said something similar.
Yeah.
Going beyond it.
Yeah.
I think you're very much in line with what Chitananda was talking about, and it's true. This Buddha statue. It's really interesting. It's like, first of all, it's ethnically ambiguous, which is really attractive to us. And if you look from one direction, it looks more masculine, and you look from the other direction, it looks more feminine. And it also resembles Ayachitananda a fair bit, which is really cool.
And if you look straight on, it doesn't look either, or not even both. It just looks like a human.
Yeah. And so, I know that I've been bringing up this non-binary thing, and I don't mean to make it a big focus, but I think what you're exactly saying is right. We want to really look at the qualities of Dhamma in us, and of the qualities, the challenges, and everything that comes up in ourselves and in life, and how do we use it? How do we use all of it as a way to really see how we can be happy and at ease, we can be loving and kind, we can be wise and discerning about what's okay, what's not okay, have boundaries, care for each other, all of those things, and really open the doors. I mean, when the Buddha said, the doors to the deathless are open, this is what we need to do again and again and again for each other and for ourselves. And to know, we talked about belonging last week, or feeling like we don't fit in, and like, how can we just find the ways that we can make that a non-issue? And that's what I think you're saying, like, how does this become a non-issue? I think it comes because we really care about each other, as you are, as we are, knowing that we all have things to learn, we're working on it, we all make mistakes, that's okay. That's how we learn. That's going to be natural. We all have these patterns, like you said. How many millions of lifetimes? The Buddha said there's no discoverable beginning. That's pretty hard to fathom. But and that we don't have to work through all of that karma. We just have to see the truth. Yeah. Thank you, Neil.
Yeah. Yeah, the key word that you used that I liked is beyond. It's, we need to get beyond all of it. Mm-hmm. And I do have to make one other comment, and this is probably the comma of my wicked sense of humor, but I'm really enjoying Bonte J's hat.
I just noticed this as I was talking as well. Yeah, I think we have similar senses of humor. There. I just I'm like, I have a flower head. Yeah.
And I have to say I noticed it on Wednesday night, except it was Anagarika Sarana was wearing it.
Festive, yes. Take a break here. Lynn, can you hear us? Come in, please. Please feel welcome to come on in.
Grace got you a seat ready.
Yeah, you got your spot right here. Yeah. Any other? Yes, Ita.
When we were discussing all this, just a thought came in my mind. I've imagined a world where we are just not able to see ourselves but everybody else, and then the whole thing of the self is gone, and the male and the female and any other gender is gone. Yeah. And I just like, and then this all superficial thing is gone, and we can go so deep in our non-self world.
Yeah, so true.
It was a beautiful imagination I just had.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, it reminds me of something Xander played for us the other night. We were talking about Master Hua, the teacher and leader of the community that's at the City of 10,000 Buddhas and Berkeley Buddhist Monastery. Yeah, come on in, Lynn. If you want to sit on a cushion, you can, or you can use a chair or whatever is good for you.
Just on a chair.
Okay. All right. Anyhow, Xander was talking about these. Do you want to tell us about it, any, Xander?
Which part?
The Master Hua talk. The part I was thinking of was when one of his disciples, Marty, was talking about one of his disciples in this video clip. One of his disciples was talking about how when he came to Master Hua's community, he was really testing to see if Master Hua was the real deal, and how he would like watch him, his every move, to see, as when someone sends an envelope, is he going to open it up and see how much money is in it, or is he does he care about any of that, or does he care about the food, and all this kind of stuff. And one of his final comments about his investigation and his observation of Master Hua, it's like, I think he said, it's like there's nobody there. And I've heard people say that about Ajahn Paññavāda when he was alive, it's like nobody's there. It sounds so much like what you're saying, Nita, like, what if we don't see ourselves? And, it feels like those people who've gotten to that point of real mastery of the Dhamma are just entirely selfless and available to others. And they do have an awareness of their own body and they take care of it, but it's not like, oh, this is me, they're mine. But they're, being sensible. It's not like there's no care for this particular being either. That's also there. If that makes sense. Denny?
I just wanted to say how beautiful it is just to witness this, and how it's sometimes when I meditate or I think like I'm not getting anywhere or whatever, and then I think sometimes it's just the act of showing up. It's just that commitment, and just to be with this community and just seeing you guys today, it just feels so moving, and it gives me some kind of, I don't know, what a radical thing this is to do for all of us, just to take time out of regular lives. Or and there was one phrase, I forget your name, the man in the gray, when you said there's something about the ayahs, just like I love that phrase, and it struck me like, there's a musical.
Produced by Denny and Neil.
Neil's up for it.
We'll talk later, Denny.
Can I say something?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
They can hear you.
Sure. Yeah. Well, something just came up for me is, learning about the Dhamma in itself is such a beautiful and amazing thing, and to put the teachings into practice and see how they like really do lead to, well-being and happiness, and letting go of suffering is an amazing thing. But for me, one of the most inspiring things is seeing people who have really put the practice, put the Dhamma into practice for years, like the ayahs, and just seeing like the beautiful, wholesome qualities that come out of, a mind that's been steeped in the teachings and the practice, and to see the purity and goodness. It's just, it makes me want to have those qualities, and to bring them forward, to share them with other people. Yeah. So it's very important and inspiring to be in contact with people on a regular basis, I think, who really do put that into practice and share with others. So thank you both for doing that for me and for this community. This is an awesome community. Yeah.
Thanks to everybody. Yeah. Sitina?
Yes, just want to say a couple things, but I want to start off by saying such sadhu times 1,000. Thank you everyone for sharing. And also, I just opened it to gallery view and was seeing everybody, and I had that same feeling that Denny had of this warmth of, and how cool we are. Our conditioning allows us to think that this is cool. And I just wanted to say that because some context, I've been staying at a different Bhikkhuni Vihara not too far from where you guys are at. As I said, I'm in Albany, the East Bay, but I just came back from Dhamma, which is in the North Bay with Ayatotaloka, and they have maybe like 6 or 8 bhikkhunis spread out in the hermitage and in the monastery. So I it's just been around. I brought that up because I've been serving them during their winter retreat. I always want to come on live, but I always get to listen to you guys on YouTube. So I feel so intimate with you guys already. And hearing everyone share. And I just really resonate, I think, with what Xander was saying about this level of sadha, this, of understanding of sadha and faith as being able to put your heart upon, and just finding that with every person, the expression of Dhamma is different. Because I had this understanding that every person is like a expression of the universe. So in the same way, I feel that with everyone, the Dhamma comes out as a different expression. And so when you allow everyone to really express the Dhamma, you see that it doesn't ever end. Like it doesn't ever, there's never like, and this is where it doesn't go into. So it just kind of reinforces like there's nothing and there's nobody who's not a teacher. And so thank you so much. I think that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Satina. So this has been a fair bit about, obviously, community, supporting each other, spiritual friendship, having diversity in the Sangha, making the doors open for people to be welcome and to feel comfortable enough to let go. And now I don't know if people have other questions, other things that have been happening, other things that are coming up in your life, reasons why you would show up at this meeting. As we've got some time. We could meditate together, which is also good, but if you have questions, this might be a good time to ask while we have kind of the larger panel of monastics and aspiring monastics here. I've really been enjoying listening to Xander and Anagarika Sarna talking about their experiences. They're entering monastic training, and at such a young age too. And it's just lovely. Ling?
Thank you, Aya. I've been thinking of mention this. I'm very inspired for the young people for going to the monastic path. I often wish I could get into this path much earlier. I was born in China, and we have Guanyin at home, but I was never inspired by the way, just like incense and like bow, nothing. When I read a Buddha's book in Chinese, I have no idea what was that. And I only found in a Buddha's teaching, and was 8-9 years ago when I heard Ajahn Brahm's talk. It was just totally kind of opened my mind and my heart. But at the time I also feel like I'm getting old. I'm a single mother. I have a child. I feel like it was kind of too late sometimes. But I have to say, I'm finding Ayya Khema's book, and also find that you was such a an encourage for me, you know, even I'm old, I can still practice. And also I remember last year when you told me, and it's such a good thing for my son when I practice. That was just something really touched my heart. You know, as a mother, probably you know, the best thing you wish is good for. And the only thing I wish for my son is he's happy. And then when you said that, I was just so inspired. And I just want to mention this, like, and even I'm old, sometimes I'm getting tired, but I feel like seeing you practice, you know, I have still kind of have a bit hope for myself. You know, I can still walk even I'm, you know, not that young. And so I'm really grateful for this community, especially even I'm sort of brought up in the Buddhist country, but really see the Buddha's teaching when you get in touch with this community. Very grateful from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
Thank you, Ling. Yeah, it's great to see people who are practicing so diligently throughout their life, or as soon, you know, when they come to the Dhamma, whatever age we come to it, or whatever age, and practicing without knowing it's Dhamma. I mean, I think about my childhood and some of the people around us in the farming community, and people know the Dhamma and many things about the Dhamma. You know, what goes around comes around. That was their expression of karma. You know, there's a lot of, you know, the Dhamma's there for everyone to know, and I'm glad that, you know, there are these different voices. And I hope Jolie doesn't mind my reference to you. I can't see you on the screen right now, Jolie, but I think you told us your age one day, and that's very inspiring. To see you practicing so diligently at your age. Is it possible for us to go to speaker view?
Yes, and Neil has raised his hand.
Yes, I know. We'll get to Neil in a second. Jolie?
Yes, thank you for your comment. And I am grateful for this. I came to it later in my life too, and I probably was in my 70s. But one regret at the time was that I didn't find it sooner. And certainly it would have, well, I believe that once you begin to really study this, it's not only a benefit to you, but it's a benefit to everyone around you, because you bring caring and love, and you only want the best for everybody you meet. And so I would say it's not only a benefit for each one of us, but it's what we put out into the world also. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Julie. And would you mind sharing with the community your age at this point?
Well, I'm 98 now.
Yeah.
And and I am finding the world as that we live in. It's really quite a burden. I'm ready to let it go. As long as I'm here, I feel the need to keep working at it and putting out as much good as I can into the world. So it's a worthwhile cause. very worthwhile.
Thank you, Julie. Neil?
Well, I just wanted to say, because you said something just before about practicing the path without knowing you're on the path. And I used to tell my mother a lot because I knew it made her crazy because she was a devout Catholic. I used to tell her, you know, you're the person who taught me Buddhism. She would be like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Because, you know, she raised us on kindness and generosity and thoughtfulness, which I would translate as mindfulness. So yeah, you know, it's out there. A lot of people don't know they're Buddhists, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. You know, many of you know who Ajahn Chandasiri is. She was one of the first women to be ordained in the Sila Dara order, which is the one that Ajahn Sumedho started in England. And she's been a nun for a very long time, and her parents had a hard time with her decision to become a nun. Her father really had a hard time with her having a shaved head because he was in the war in World War II. Now, she's English. And he was in the war, served in the war in World War II. And during that time, they apparently shaved the heads of the prostitutes so that they would be easily identifiable, is my understanding. And when he would see her shaved head, he could only think of that. He couldn't really look at her. It's very hard. And her mother also, I think, was pretty unhappy with her choice to be a nun. And many years later, Ajahn Chandasiri co-taught a retreat with a Christian nun. I think it was a nun or a monk, I can't remember. But it was a Christian Buddhist retreat, and her mother came. And at the end, her mother said to her, "You're a better Christian than I am." You know, it was sweet to have that understanding. Holly?
I have been wondering about the experience of Anagarika Sarana, but other Anagarikas and Xander, you'll be entering into that realm. I wonder if the Ayas or the forming monks and nuns would want to share anything about that experience. It seems to me there might be some pulling back from the community family you had and loneliness and maybe feeling like you've been dropped into a void until the new world comes around you in your monastic community. I just have a lot of compassion, and anything you might want to share would be well received by me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Holly. You want to say anything?
I didn't understand the part of being pulled up. Or I didn't understand.
Yeah, I'm gonna restate this and see if I get it right, Holly. What I heard was, you know, this transition from going from your family life and, you know, being with your family and coming into the monastic sangha, and how it might feel. I think what Holly said, like you're dropped into this void until a community, you know, you kind of feel the community around you, you know, you're kind of like away from what you're used to in your family.
Mm-hmm.
So any thoughts or about your experience of that? Did that come close, Holly? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's interesting because in the beginning, like, well, it's interesting in this lifetime that how things unfolded for me was to start this adulting process as a monastic, well, in robes, in a kind of robes. that there are many things that I didn't get to do and I didn't want to do, and fortunately I have very supportive parents, and it's weird and I so appreciate it. Like even though Mexico has no much contact with Buddhism, particularly with Theravada Buddhism, and that they don't understand what was going on, like suddenly my 19, 20-year-old girl wants to become a nun and she's my only daughter, and what's like all the expectations around my life since I was a baby. And like seeing this process of them letting go of that like really shows me what unconditional love is about, and letting me come to the United States, like to another country. And like I also this is something I wanted to point out, like, and I think it's something common with Sanders' story, like being in our 20s and having discovered this path is so great. And a lot of it started because of internet. Just by clicking, being curious and trying to find opportunities to live this life. So in the beginning I was drawn to try a different thing, because as the place I grew up in was, my idea was, to marry, have kids and work, and I didn't have another option in my mind. But one day at a museum, Memory and Tolerance Museum in Mexico City, they were like all these religions in the world, and I was like, oh, which one? Maybe one is waiting, and what if I leave everything behind and I become a monastic? I don't know what religion, but I feel it's the right thing to do with my life. I don't know. So, I mean, it's been it feels natural, and obviously at certain points it's been challenging, like to be away from family, away from the country and culture and language I grew up with. Although here we are surrounded by so many Mexicans, so like whenever in the supermarket I find like a Latino person, I'm like, hola. So I can see even that I work with that attachment, to using my own language, to using the things I'm comfortable with, to the foods I'm comfortable with, to really like see, oh, this was all conventions, like not reality. So yeah, I think it's, and being at a place that is challenging enough to poke defilements, but at the same time very safe, thanks to the IS, to share and work with these things, step by step. So I'm very grateful to having find this place, and I hope in the future more people, Hispanic speakers, can have more chances to practice as lay people and as monastics if they want to.
Can I get you to talk about your contact with your family now and how they're coming? Because a lot of monasteries are much more restrictive with how much contact you can have with your family and how often they can visit or how often you can visit. So I want to talk about that.
Yeah, they are coming on Monday. Yeah, they're gonna be here for next Sutta study, so that also makes me very happy, because it's the first time. It's not the first time they see a monastic. They saw a monastic in Mexico, and but then on Dicena, and now they're coming here, but it's gonna be their first time in a vihara, and to get to see my lifestyle. And this was an image in my mind I had years ago, like how would it look like when my parents come to see my life as an independent woman, and like my apartment and cooking nice food and like stuff like that. And then I'm like, wow, it's like so nice that I can get to share things that I find more valuable, and and that they are also interested about, and they are like, my mom's meditating and practicing meditation, They mostly practice many of the precepts, at least the first one, a lot, and I'm very glad about it. So, and I have frequent contact with them. So, yeah.
Yeah, we're looking forward to their visit. They thought they wanted to stay in her kuti. And then she described the conditions, and they're like, we'll get a room at the lodge down the road. Oh, they're going to spend some time here at the meditation center, which is a little more comfortable. We're going to see what we can do about beds. But, it's just, it's lovely to include parents. And of course, most of you know that I was introduced to the Dhamma because my son became a monk, and because I never had the interest in going to Asia, but I went and stayed in the monastery in Thailand because I needed to see my son. And I caught the virus. It was great.
Monastic fever, huh?
Monastic fever. Yeah. Did you want to say anything, Xander, about this transition period for you?
Yeah, sure. Well, I've kind of been pulling out gradually from, I guess, my entanglements in lay life for about the past almost a year now, pretty slowly making the transition toward monastic life. And when I did kind of start pulling away more in the lay world, I definitely felt some sense of isolation and loneliness. When I was still, when I was really pulling away, like in fall, I was still in school and going to a new monastery. I started going in, the first monastery I went to was in Seattle with the venerables over there. And I felt, I was kind of integrated into the community there. Then I came down from Seattle to college in San Francisco, and I was visiting a Baigiri every weekend. And I didn't have a lot of friends there or close relationships with any of the monks, and I felt a sense of loneliness. But it didn't last for very long, actually. Just the more time I've spent there, and the more I've gotten to meet the monks, I don't feel like a lack of community or family or anything like that. And I don't feel lonely when I'm there. I mean, I spend you spend time alone. I like being alone a lot too, but yeah, I mean, I feel, I feel quite held, I think, by the monastic community. It's like getting a second family.
That makes me think of when I spent time in the monastery where my son would be, and I did that every year. Wherever monastery he was at, I would spend time with him. And one of the monks early on said to me, "Now you are in this family too." And it's true, Sarana's parents are in the family too, and they get to use it however they want. And one of the things in the tradition, in Ajahn Chah's lineage, that I've noticed is that parents are treated very well when they come to visit, and they're really, they have the opportunity to ask questions and to learn to the degree they're interested. So that's a big help. I know I could not have gone into a tradition that makes you stay away from your family, and has strong restrictions of like cutting off communication. That never felt like it was appropriate for my situation. And as many of you know, my mother also, she wanted to see her grandson, and she went to Thailand. she said she's laying on the mat on the floor and there's lizards running around the room and she just goes to sleep, and she said the only way I would do this is for David. Never otherwise would you find me in this situation. And she really took to the Dhamma, and she said at one point this was the thing she was looking for all her life. So it really like moved up the generations in our family and was incredibly beneficial to all of us. So the hope is that whatever one's family thinks about this, they have this opportunity. And I've heard many monks and nuns talk about the challenges in the beginning with their family, Westerners in particular, going into monastic life, and then later on, their son or daughter is the one they call when someone's dying or when something happens, and they find real support. Any other comments or questions or complaints? Can we go back to gallery view? Now I can see everyone's little box. Shall we meditate for a few minutes? Yeah. During this session, we tend to talk about things that are hopefully beneficial and certainly sensitive sometimes. And there's so much value in noticing how we feel with mindfulness and clear comprehension. And take notice of those things that bring up our interest, our inspiration, our feelings. Because it's through contact and feeling that we experience pleasure, pain, neither pleasure nor pain. And it's exploring these feelings and the mental patterns that cause these feelings to arise that really helps us understand dukkha and the end of dukkha. Suffering and happiness, and to begin to become clearer about where happiness is found and where it is not found. So many of us talking about coming to the Dhamma, practicing the Dhamma, learning what real happiness is and how we discover it and how we begin to let go of the obstacles to happiness. To know that we all have this opportunity to to walk this path. We all have the ability to do it, regardless of what your assessment is of your own strengths and weaknesses and character. You have the ability to walk this path to the end. It's important to remember that. And that maybe the journey isn't as long as you think it will be, because Nibbana is here and now. Thank you all for joining us. Everybody, nice to meet you. And we're going to be offering a program from 12:30 to 2:30 California time. We're heading off in that direction right now, and we'll be there meeting with people in person in Berkeley, and we'll be online, and you can find the link. I know you've already been through a lot today. You're going to come in the afternoon too, but just in case, you can find the link on the homepage. And next week, we're going to have a day long at this time, and I'm hoping the link is this link.
I have no idea. Whatever's on the homepage.
Yeah, but we want it, well, we're going to try to, I hope we can make the link for next Saturday the same as this link, so in case anyone doesn't know, we're starting at 9 o'clock, so anybody who comes to this program will be able to see, oh, they're going to do it all day, okay, whatever. You can come to any part you want or any part you're available for. And it's going to be on loving kindness. And I don't think I can produce the quote off the top of my head, but it's about really making metta a vehicle and a basis for your practice. And so we'll be really investigating and practicing with that next Saturday.